Hello, everyone, and it's Coach Amanda here, Coach Amanda Liptak of Nutrient Rich Life, and I have with me Coach Ana, and she's going to introduce herself, and she's going to give us some great information about what she does, her area of expertise, and I'm just going to let her introduce herself, and we're just going to get right into it.
Everyone. Yes, my name is Ana, and I'm a psychologist. I'm specialized in emotional and binge eating. I help people with those conditions to kind of get rid of binge eating, but without going on diets or severe restrictions. And I'm someone who has also suffered from various type of distorted, relationships with food and eating disorders, and that one in particular for over 15 years, binge eating.
Absolutely. So you use your professional experience and also personal experience to merge those things together so you can provide, guidance and healing to all of your clients, right? So I love that. Tell
Yes.
me.
I mean, yeah, like I think just as a reference, I think people like the fact that you're knowledgeable, like you have the school, the degrees, the certificates, but I think where the communication is, intimate, they like to have someone who has been through it and kind of understands a little bit on a deeper level what it means to fight, an eating disorder. So
Mhm.
that's where the connection is actually happening with clients.
For sure. It's making that human connection and just drawing in from your experiences because you know what they have been going through because you were there at one time.
Yes.
Speaking of binge eating, I think that this is a very misunderstood term. Could you explain to the audience like what binge eating technically is by definition? And then is there discrepancy out there in the market as to what people think that it is? Like, is there an education gap?
I mean, there is a small gap because we use the word binging for everything, right? Like you're binging on Netflix, you're binging on, whatever like you want to
Right.
watch. And so, but binge eating has certain characteristics that you need to have in order to be qualified, let's say, as a binge eater. So what it means is that few times a week, if not every day, but at least 4 times a week, you are eating in a day an amount of calories which is more or less equivalent for the whole day or more in one sitting. Put
Okay.
it simply, let's say if I eat 2000 calories per day, then I eat 2.5, in one sitting. So like a very big amount of calories. That's number one. Number two, binge eaters eat in secrecy because there is a shame of the type of foods, but also the quantities. Sometimes in very specific cases, and I've done it, you binge in front of other people because you want to appear normal. But I mean, in general, it's done in secrecy. There is a lot of shame and guilt associated with what I have done. So it's not that they are enjoying this experience. It's a painful experience and binge eaters are not even aware most of the time how much food they have eaten because it's almost like eating in a trance, if that makes sense. Like you're just eating, and then it's like, oh my God, I have eaten all of this. It's like you're possessed. That's kind of a feeling that's
Sure.
going on because you're trying to fill in some void or distract or numb yourself from something. So until you're bursting, you're basically not enjoying it. Like people have this misconception that binge eaters just love food so much. No, they don't, but they're trying to use food to numb something else or distract them from something else. And with binge eating, I would say another thing that also comes very often is um, abuse of other substances, laxatives, diet pills. Bulimia is very much associated because binge eaters are also often restricting after the binge in some shape or form,
Mm-hmm.
purging calories somehow. Through classic bulimia or bulimia exercise or just going on a crazy cleanse for 7 days. That's like part of it. And it's not the same as overeating from time to time. Like you go to some event or you go to a restaurant that you really wanted to visit and you eat a little bit more, but you are present, you're enjoying it, you are not punishing yourself for it, and you move on the next day as if it was one night in a month and you don't really make a big deal out of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not binge eating.
Now,
That people
let
use
me,
that term, but it's not. Like it's just
sure.
like I overate a little bit more because the food was so tasty, you
Mhm.
know?
Now, I know what people are probably thinking. So, because so many people fall into this category where they're truly, probably clinically not binge eaters, but
Yeah.
they feel like this is not a one-time instance. So, I went, we had Easter here last week. It was a holiday. So, a lot of people will go into the Easter weekend and it will actually, their one cheat day turns into a cheat weekend because it's a holiday and want to let my hair down. I want to enjoy. I want to be with family, friends, all these things. A lot of people on vacation. And that turns into like 3 or 4 days of like being off the wagon or off the diet plan, right? And then we need to get back on. So is that kind of like that's not binge eating? Can you explain that that is more diet culture driven?
That's very diet culture driven because, as I said, like binge eaters don't go necessarily into that mode. Oh, it's Easter, let me binge. No, they don't think about it like that. They think in terms of something happened, something triggered me, something I cannot handle, and I know what I use to cope. So there is no enjoyment, there is no pleasure. Like you eating Easter eggs, for fun or because you are in that diet culture, which I will come to now, is not what binge eaters do. Diet culture, on the other hand, tells you that chocolate and candies and Easter bunnies and all this bread and whatever, it's a no, 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 no. And most people who, are following certain advice or want to lose weight, they are removing these foods on a regular from their diet. And then comes Easter, and it's a perfect opportunity, just like Thanksgiving, just like Christmas, just like, New Year's, whatever, where it's allowed to have a cheat day. When you think about it, cheat days are planned binges. If I
Sure.
am thinking on a Thursday that from tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I'm going to eat this, and this in big quantities, lay home, not do anything, not work out, it's planned. It's
Plan.
you are planning to eat more, and that's a response to not being allowed to eat those foods on any regular day. So that's like a diet
Right.
culture response.
For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. In your opinion, what is the biggest reason why people binge? And you may have answered this. Do you think that it's going back to that numbing something? Is that the biggest reason, or is there another reason that you can think of?
There are more reasons. I would say the biggest predictor of binge eating is dieting.
Mm.
Dieting and severely restricting your
Can
food
we
intake.
can we say that again? Sound the alarms. Can we say it again?
No, but it is actually true. If you are like I was in the cycle of dieting hardcore, and when I was dieting, I was also a bit anorexic, a bit bulimic, just get rid of the calories, one way or the other. And then I would binge because it was just not sustainable. I am not against dieting when it's done like what you do with your clients, like when it's done in a sustainable way. It will take a little bit more time, but you're kind of learning how to eat different foods and combine them and eat in moderation and listen to your hunger cues. But if you are hardcore dieting and eating really below maintenance and exercising on top of that and doing some cleanses and whatnot, your body at one point will rebel. Like you cannot sustain this. And so you will have your binge and you will call it a cheat day.
Absolutely.
This is for, let's say, the majority of the population.
Right.
But then you have, so as a restriction, as a number one, reason. And then you have people with certain traumas, triggers, negative experiences, body dysmorphia. Um, and basically they found, and this usually happens at a very young age, like it happened for me, like people find food very comforting.
Yes.
Like you cannot find alcohol and cigarettes comforting at the age of 10, but you can find food because at the age of 10 that chocolate feels good.
Mhm.
So if you are not learning from a young age to cope with certain uncomfortable feelings, to sit with them, to analyze them, but if you feel like it's unbearable, you will be faced to find a quick solution to get out of that state of feeling uncomfortable. And for a lot of kids it's chocolate, and also like it's also culturally driven wherever you live, that like if you feel sad, let me give you a chocolate,
Yes.
you're better. Like I mean, I have experienced it, everyone has experienced that, like, oh, you feel sad, it's okay, I will make your favorite cake.
Right, right.
Talking about why are you sad, and then you go to adulthood with the same mechanisms. So, and that's when we talk about emotional eating. But the problem is, if that's your only way to cope with life,
Mhm.
then it becomes something that you are starting to abuse. And
Yes,
I always say it will happen, obviously, that sometimes you eat for emotional reasons.
right,
Of course it will happen. And it's not such a big deal. But if it's your only way to cope, that every single time you're triggered or something happens or you're bored or you're anxious or whatever, that you go for food, that then becomes a problem. And that,
right.
then you are leading towards the path of binging.
Right. I think that most of my clients and audience, I actually offer a free masterclass from time to time. And one of the things that we point out about emotional eating, is that it actually is normal to gravitate towards food out of emotion from time to time. That's part of our DNA and right, our human nature, our genetic makeup, like all the things that's part of our being. And it becomes problematic when it becomes habitual. It becomes problematic when it's the only reason, like it's your only coping mechanism, and that's your go-to 100% of the time, and you absolutely have no other stress reducing techniques whatsoever. That's when it becomes a real issue. And it's nice that we're actually kind of talking about this because I feel like so many people are misinterpreting these terms and misunderstanding like actually what they mean, because diet culture, again, right, has taught us that all these things are bad.
Yes.
It's almost like, hey, you're not allowed to be human because you broke the rules.
Yeah. And if you break the rules, you need to be punished for it.
Right.
Like if you eat
Absolutely.
something which is off plan or which is off what diet culture promotes as healthy or the trendy superfood of the hour, you will feel like you're failing at something. I had constantly that feeling like, come on, Anna, just be more disciplined. What's
More
wrong with you?
willpower.
More willpower, more disciplined. And all diets are, focusing only on your willpower. Those who have more willpower will stay on it, and those who don't, well, they will fail. Right. So
Absolutely.
so that's what you think, that's why you are the problem, because you don't have enough of willpower and motivation to lose weight. And then you binge, and then you're like, okay, back again, square one.
Back on the
Every
merry-go-round.
time, exactly. And every time you fail at your diet, you need to rectify that mistake. And I think with binge eating, for example, that's very common. That, and it was also my experience many times after a big binge, I'll
Mhm.
be like, okay, so I ate like, 2000 calories, but it's okay because from tomorrow I have a plan. And then you calm down and then you continue binging because everything has to be eaten, because these foods will not be allowed for God knows how long while I'm trying to, lose the weight. Um, so you need to kind of rectify the mistake immediately. And then you sort of calm down your brain, like, okay, but there is a solution. Doesn't matter what I've done because there is a solution. I will go on a water cleanse for 3 days and this will be gone. It's fine. And you don't actually understand how distorted that is, because someone will tell you that being on a 3-day water cleanse is amazing. It probably is amazing, but not as a response to a binge, because you should never focus on what you have eaten and how to rectify it. You have to focus on how the binge happened in the first place. Like what
Absolutely.
happened before, which is, more in-depth work. And I think that many people are not equipped with that, or they feel that they're not equipped, or that they cannot handle it. And I always say you can handle anything. You just
Absolutely.
feel that you cannot, and you have learned that you don't have to, because food is available.
Right. Absolutely. I always tell my clients, press the rewind button because your feelings right now about the situation are a product that has happened several hours ago,
Yeah.
yesterday, the day before, and that's why you want to take action in the way you want to do today, right? So you got to press that rewind button to find out the answer for sure. So in today's society, there's a lot of people who just say, I'm just being healthy doing this. Like the restriction is in response to, I want to be healthy. I don't want high cholesterol. I don't want to end up like my mom who had diabetes and she was in a wheelchair and, she died from complications. And, I don't want to be like my dad and he was always overweight and, suffering all these things. And of course, to a certain extent, those thoughts are healthy because we don't want to repeat, generational issues as far as our health is concerned. We want to be the next generation to break those ties and do better for ourselves and live healthier and vibrant lives. But at what point does that become an obsession?
When it takes a mental toll on you. So, for example, there is nothing wrong, and we have to be, grateful that we have all this knowledge available, right? Like, you know, like my parents' generation, they were like crossing fingers and hoping that they're doing things right when it comes to their health. It was like so few ways to kind of, get information out there, right? Like nowadays, yes, you have a lot of it. You can search for what you want and then, compare and make a decision. And it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to be focused on your health and want to optimize your health or, lose weight, whatever it is. The problem when it starts to become too much is what we call orthorexia, when you are no longer eating clean, but now this becomes the center of your attention, your life, your brain power. Everything goes into what am I eating? What are the ingredients? Is it clean? But then as a consequence, I cannot eat out because I don't know what they're putting in. I don't want to order food. No one can cook for me. Then it's debilitating. Like if you're not able to eat in a way that you can participate in life, there is a problem. And I think the issue nowadays is that, and I have experienced this, a long time ago, that, for example, you can say, Anna said, we shouldn't eat bread. And Amanda said we shouldn't eat pasta. I'm following these smart ladies. So I'm not eating bread, I'm not eating pasta. And then, you find another, set of gurus and influencers and doctors who tell you different things. And you can find for almost every single item in your fridge,
Absolutely.
someone will tell you that it's poison, cancer, death, whatever. The problem is like that's not driven by health. That's driven by fear of food and a poor relationship with food. Because I know that maybe big quantity of sweets are not the best for me. I will not remove them, but I will try to find from all these experts what are those ones, that are maybe better for me. Can I combine them with some foods? How to maximize their effect on my body and so on and so forth, But if I now go in and start removing everything because that's what the internet says, that's driven by fear of gaining weight or fear of, whatever, just not like meeting certain standards of beauty. And people are hiding behind the science a lot.
Yes, I love
Behind,
that. I love that. People are hiding behind the science. That is
oh
so
yeah,
true. If I run
I've done
into,
it, so I'm guilty of it.
sure,
I
sure,
know, but I know that I was doing it not because I really believe the science, like intermittent fasting.
right.
It's a perfect example. Does it have a lot of benefits? Absolutely. But if I fast for 20 hours and then I'm starting to notice serious side effects, so technically I should be smart enough to be like, this is not for me. But my normal brain would say, Anna, stop. And then I would go and eat my breakfast. My distorted brain is saying, you're not doing it enough.
Mm.
And
That-
then, and then it's like, let's go 1 meal a day. And then let's go 48 hours. And that's 72, You're not doing it enough because you are not the person who is supposed to be doing it because your relationship with food is bad.
right,
Some
right.
other people who don't have this issue, for example, intermittent fasting is amazing.
hmm
Amazing. So
Or the emotions and things come up and they're there, but they're
yeah,
suppressing them and they continue to intermittent fast, even though they can only eat until, they can only eat at 12 o'clock noon, but they're starving at 9 a.m.
yeah.
every single day.
Mm-hmm.
They are dreading their black coffee because they're afraid if they put anything in there, cream, sugar, any kind of keto, whatever, non-caloric, doesn't matter. They have to have it black because they don't want to break their fast and they hate it. Every morning they're cringing, but they have to get their caffeine. The people that are pushing through to try and meet the standards of the diet,
Yeah.
when diet never aligned with them in the first place, but all they really want to do is really, they don't want to be out of compliance, because that means that they're not able to live up to the program. And they've always been goal-oriented, a go-getter, somebody who's always been doing everything perfectly and has been rewarded throughout their whole life for doing these things. And so I find that those kinds of people, the goal-oriented people, the people in high-powered career positions, are really pulled into this more. And those are the ones that are really getting into the science and saying, I have to do this for my health. I'm a smart person. I've researched this, all the things. They don't realize the strenuous toll that is taking on their mental health, and that is not health. That's not
Yeah,
health.
yeah, no, it's not. And I think, and you're right. I mean, there is type of personality psychology says of people who have tendency towards eating disorders, and perfectionism is one of them, and being praised for something and craving the praise and craving being accepted and then never feeling like you're good enough, you know. These people, and myself included, I was never able to say, I don't care what you think.
100%.
You know, it's like, oh, it was always like, what people think, is this good enough? If it's not, let's do it better. So, and then, but then you pick up every single topic that you can, fasting or some diet, and then you do it hardcore. I always say, for example, if you take, you know, low carb keto diet, I've tried it obviously, but, and I would be lying if I said I don't like those foods. I like them. What's there not to like? I mean, if you know, if you like those foods like meat and fish and whatever, but if I am missing some carbs, my logical brain would normally say, okay, eat 80% keto and then 20% enjoy some of your carbs. That would be the very logical. So you will still have the benefits from the keto diet, but then you will include your sweet potato or whatever, some fruits. You cannot do that if you are adhering to a diet culture in the all or nothing mentality. And if you took it as, you know, written in stone, like dieting can be done only this way, otherwise you're failing. And because of your personality, you cannot accept to be a failure in your own eyes and in the eyes of, you know, people around you. So then yes, you go through this black coffee madness and putting oil and butter in it, although you hate it, or, you know, you're hungry at 7:01, but at 7 is the last time you can eat. You cannot go out, you know, like, and I think that this, it's an issue when you don't recognize that it's taking a toll on your mental health. Because physically we can endure a lot. You know what I mean? Like physically you can endure, like you will endure the hunger for 3 hours. But when you think about it, I missed out on an event because I was afraid that I will cheat on my diet. That's when we need to start assessing, is this the right diet for you? Right? What's going on, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. What would you say to, you know, the number one reason why people come to me is for weight loss, even if they're coming for, you know, gut overgrowth or bloated belly, or, you know, their midlife, you know, and they're experiencing not feeling well or whatever the symptoms are that may be pressing at that time. It's always, and I'd love to lose 10, 20, 30 pounds, right? Like at the end of the conversation, right? And so bring that in. Yes. And so when I start working with somebody, I start noticing that there may be some tendencies or past tendencies, right, or disordered thoughts around eating. You know, we obviously address those things, and they have to be at the forefront. They have to happen first. But what would you say to somebody who is clinically overweight, feels uncomfortable in their body, knows they want to lose weight, they've been trying every weight loss thing, but also they are clinically a binge eater? So what would be the first thing that you would actually say to that person?
You will stop gaining weight, or the weight will drop when the binges stop. Period. That's a given. When you stop eating all those extra calories that you don't need, the weight will drop. So what it means is that we're going to eat when we're physically hungry. And every single time that you feel like eating, I say feel, okay? It's not actually that there is a symptom physical, just like it's a feeling. I could be hungry.
Like an emotional trigger.
Emotional trigger. We are going to have to assess that because you're actually not hungry. physical hunger is not something that you have to think twice about. Whenever, I always say to my clients, whenever you question, am I hungry or not, you're not hungry. We know when we are hungry. Physical symptoms are there to remind us, let's say in a way, that hunger is coming, or it's there, and there are very clear physical signs. But also for binge eaters, they cannot be on diets. So what it means, like they eat when they're physically hungry, and they stop when they're full, but the foods that they eat in the meantime, for let's say breakfast, lunch, dinner, there has to be a variety. It cannot feel like a diet all over again. Otherwise, it's too much.
It's just restriction again.
Restriction again, and then again, they will be like, let's wait for that cheat day. So what I always suggest is, if you're making, meal plans and you're trying to lose weight, as you say in this case, and the person is like, I want to make meal plans and I have to eat 2,300 calories a day, whatever, in a small caloric deficit, by the way, not a big one, small one. I would always suggest to people to look at their week, forget about the days, like weekends are not for binging and Monday to Friday is not for eating clean. So like look at the whole week and then say to yourself, okay, so if I'm making 21 meals a week, let me make 18 meals super dialed in. And then, the other 3, 4, whatever, let's have some flexibility, because you're supposed to lose weight once and not really gain it, or at least not have a big fluctuation, right? So you have to be very honest with yourself. What are the foods that you want to eat for the rest of your life? So for example, if someone says pizza, tacos, donut, or whatever, pancake, we need to include them in those 21 meals to calm the urges for the binge, to calm that sensation, that some food is forbidden, and nothing is forbidden. Because if you think about it, like if I tell you salmon, rice, broccoli with I don't know what, and then, or 3 slices of pizza, there will not be a major difference in calories. Like we're not going to be 1,000 calories overboard on the day when we have pizza or pancakes for breakfast instead of eggs. But if I don't give you that pizza, you will only think about pizza.
Absolutely.
And the problem is you will not be able to stop. And the reason why you will not be able to stop is because you have never learned to eat pizza in a way which is, I have it enough, I know
Accepted.
I can have it tomorrow, accepting it, let's move on. You have only eaten pizza as a part of a binge. And that's what you know. And so the next time I give you pizza, after 3 months of restricting it, you will go all in. And then it's like psychologically difficult to recover from that. When you include variety for other purposes, which is your job, and the gut and everything which we spoke before, you calm your brain from this thing like, when I lose weight, I will have my burger. No, you have to eat your burger as part of your diet. Every 2 weeks, have your burger. It will not change much, but it will calm the brain, which is very important, because we all know when we are hardcore dieting, then we have only thoughts about the foods that we cannot have.
What about the people that come to the table and say, but Ana, when I don't have those things, I just feel better. I feel better when I don't have those things. So they're good.
It's not a problem. Then it's not a problem. The problem is only, are you being truthful? So here's the thing. I can go on a diet, and let's say butter cookies are my favorite cookies, which they are. And they're loaded with butter, which is why they're called butter cookies.
Butter cookies.
Very, very caloric dense cookies.
Yeah.
Okay? It's not a 40-calorie cookie. And I can say to myself, this doesn't fit. So for 3 months, I'm not having a single butter cookie. I feel better. I'm not eating this sugar stuff. But the problem is that I still love it. Like you cannot, unless you're allergic to something or you really don't like eating it, those foods you don't think about. Like they're just not in your radar.
Right.
But I can remove stuff and I can feel better in the moment physically. But there is also a component of loving certain foods for the taste and for the flavor. I will not all of a sudden stop loving them. I will acknowledge that I feel better. It's like with alcohol. There is not a single person that will not tell you, I feel great when I don't drink. but they will still have a drink from time to time. Because in the moment they feel good. And the same goes with food. And I think that that's where people are making a mistake, is that they try to remove everything, and in general, a lot of foods all at once.
All at one time. Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't really work like that. And I think it's much easier if you say, okay, I still love butter cookies, but I will not have 5. I can have 5, but I will feel worse with 5.
Mm-hmm.
If I have 1, the craving is satisfied, let's say, 1 or 2, whatever we're talking about, but I will not feel horrible. I think most people will tell you about any food that they feel horrible, but then you ask them, how much of it did you have? Then they're like, I had a bag of cookies. I'm like, well, obviously.
Obviously, you're going to feel bad.
But you're not supposed to have a bag. You're
Right.
having a bag, and at least for my clients, in 90%, it's a response to restriction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because they cannot comprehend, if they come from diet culture, that eating cookies on Monday, on Wednesday, on Friday, having 2 cookies or 1, whatever, that it's doable, that it's
Right.
normal, that it's acceptable,
Right.
or accepted, you know.
Sure.
So of course, if you have a bag, it will be bad, but that's
Right.
not what you're supposed to be
And where
doing.
I see this comes into play, like in my practice in particular, where we really kind of dig deeper into people's health with, nutrition testing and different things like that. Someone
Mm,
may have a legitimate food sensitivity or food intolerance. They may have an
absolutely.
unknown food allergy.
Yeah.
And in those instances, you may find that you do eat a bite of something, or you do have one cookie and you do feel horrible.
Yeah.
But that is more of a clinical and here's the thing, we can't lean on this, again, a product of leaning on the science and going back to, I have a food
Yeah.
sensitivity or I have
Yeah.
an intolerance, when all my life for the last 30 years, I've been restricting food and I've been on diets.
Yeah.
And really, I don't. It's really fear coming up for me. So it's
Mhm.
really it's digging into and that's why investigation and working with someone, working with a coach, working with somebody who has experience in these areas is so important, because we can help people dissect what is actually really going on with you,
I
with
mean,
their help, of course.
absolutely. I mean, I can tell you, like, as someone who was hardcore dieting, I messed up my gut so bad because I was always eating the same foods, the foods that were allowed. Then I would have my binge. But, I was avoiding a lot of foods. And then, of course, like when you avoid something and then you introduce it, then you feel like, oh, my stomach is bloating from this and from that. And then you take that as a sign that you should remove it, without the understanding, okay, maybe this is happening because I'm not eating it regularly. I haven't, been practicing that. But with certain food that you're allergic to, like I am allergic to only one food, which is honey.
Interesting.
I'm only allergic to
Oh,
honey. Okay.
I just had honey in my coffee. I
Honey,
honestly
I
love
know,
my honey.
I know. I used to love it as well, but I am very allergic to honey, pollen, honey, whatever. Honey doesn't even cross my mind. Do you know what I mean? Because I know what it will do to me.
Yes.
It is not the same when I was avoiding dairy.
Mhm.
Dairy didn't do that to me. I avoided dairy because it was too fatty, to this, to that. Don't
Mhm.
eat dairy, you're going to gain weight. It has too many calories. It's not the same effect on the body for sure. And the proof is that as I said, I don't think about honey at all, and dairy I need to have on a regular.
Right.
Like, so it's not the same. With foods that you're allergic to, I mean, they honestly, you don't think about them. You don't crave them. Like, I know that if I open a jar of honey, I'm red in the face just from smelling it. If I would eat, I need this pen to help me
For
navigate,
sure.
because I start to choke. So I don't even entertain the idea of, like, let me try a little bit of honey and see what will happen. But when you do that with other foods and nothing happens, it comes from fear of those foods, but you still like them. But
Mhm.
you just have this power struggle, as I say, with
Right.
those foods. Like,
Right.
who will endure this fight longer?
Yeah, for sure. And I find that a lot with like dairy and gluten in particular, here in the
Yes.
US for sure, is that, people are eliminating those things, or carbs are bad, grains are bad, those types of things. Dairy is bad for you, and they're inflammatory. These things are inflammatory. And so that's what the science says. And so and here's the thing, it's like that can be the case for some people. It can. But when we do test people's food sensitivities, they don't always show up. They don't always show up. And or it's not what the food is. It's actually what the animal's eating, like particularly could be corn, right? Well, what are cows being fed in the US? They're being fed genetically modified corn and soy. And so it's actually what they're eating that humans are eating and ingesting, and that's where the sensitivity is coming from. But also you're not further ahead because a lot of gluten-free products also contain corn. So that's why you're still feeling bad, but then you're eliminating all the things. And that comes out of fear of actually not getting to the root of the problem to solve it properly and just trying to educate on your own and avoid getting help. But also, where does that actually stem from originally? Let's go back, hit the rewind button. Diets. Why are you trying to eliminate it in the first place? Is it just because you want to feel better? Or is it because you want to feel better? And also, I'm gaining weight. So is
Yeah,
the weight gain a product of dieting or the food sensitivity?
it's always the weight gain. I mean, okay, like there is a science of calories in, calories out. Not as simplified, but for most people, it's quite straightforward for most people. Um, but if you look at it like the foods such as bread, anything with carbs, right? Yes, carbs fall into different categories. And I would say that some are more or less nutritious. You cannot argue a sweet potato with a cookie. Okay, which one has more, nutritional value? On the other hand, like we wouldn't have known these things if we weren't so obsessed with diet culture. Like when I was, for example, before I entered the diet culture and it trapped me like crazy, I didn't think twice about eating the cookie. But you know what? I was never overeating on it because I knew I can have it because it was always there. Now, when I look at my kids, I love watching how they're like, we're not hungry. Do you want something sweet? No, I'll have it tomorrow. I don't know when, but it doesn't matter because they don't have the mindset this is making me gain weight. This is too many carbs, too many calories, too much sugar, and they don't restrict. I always say the same thing about any other food. Like if you take a carrot, you don't binge on carrots. You know you can have them, and you don't have anything negatively associated with a carrot like you do with the cookie or the bread. So you have to come to that stage where you will just acknowledge that you can have an overall good or bad diets, but not good or bad foods. Just like overall, how do you eat? 70, 80, whatever percent of the time, you're eating good quality, nutritiously dense foods on point,
Mhm.
The other stuff is the fun stuff. It's your life. Your quality of life cannot be good if your relationship with food is bad because you're not isolated with your food. You eat with your friends, with your family, you travel, you go out for restaurants, you order food, you have events, you have holidays. Your quality of life, and I know this for a fact, will suck if your relationship with food is bad. Because you will not have the energy for anything else. This will suck you in, basically, like this constant thoughts about food. And unfortunately, or fortunately, you cannot not eat. Therefore, it has to be on your mind all the time, like all the decisions. And so that kind of ruins other experiences.
For sure. For sure. Wow, that was a lot to take in, and it was such great information. I'm so glad that you're sharing this with everyone.
Yes.
Again, we really broke down on this call what really is binge eating clinically and how it's kind of misunderstood, in the world. And we talked about why people binge. With the number one, and I just want to say it again, the number one reason why people binge is dieting.
Dieting.
Dieting. And so really having a good relationship with food, learning to love yourself through the change of the process, to know that like you have to work on your relationship with food as you make changes.
Yes.
As
Yes.
you make changes, you can't restrict all the food, to lose all the weight, and then come back and say, okay, now I want to work on my relationship with food. Now I love myself more because I lost the weight. Okay, let's do all the things. It doesn't
No.
work like that. You're just going to go back into the cycle of dieting because you don't know how to get out of it. So that learning that process is so very, very important, which is what makes what you do so absolutely critical. Can you tell me that if somebody wants to follow you, to learn more, to hear more about what you have to say, or even to work with you on binge eating, if they're listening and they truly feel like they are a binger, how can they get a hold of you?
They can send me a message or email me Instagram Balanced by Ana with one N.
With one N.
One N, yes, or go to my website, balancedbyana.com. And there they can see my story, my services, they can get into contact. I would say for most people, it's the easiest ways through Instagram, Balanced by Ana. So there I can just answer very quickly to all their questions and see if we're a good fit,
Mhm.
actually, because that's very important because of what we said in the beginning. You might not be a binge eater, and I might guide you to somewhere else
Mhm.
rather than, telling you that you are so that we will work together.
Mhm. Absolutely, 100%. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank
I know
you.
this is super fun. We'll have to do it again. And
Yes.
there's so much to talk about and so much to explore. But I thank you for being here and we'll see you soon.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.